So, what if I told you that the quiet, green world all around us is actually buzzing with conversations, that plants are constantly sending signals, recruiting allies, and yeah, even deceiving their enemies? We're going to dive into this incredible world of plant communication, and let me tell you, it is far stranger and way more sophisticated than you can probably imagine.
To really wrap our heads around this, let's start with a little bit of science fiction. In the novel Semiosis, a super-intelligent vine basically lays down the law for some new human colonists. It tells them, look, you work for me. It sees humans not as the masters of the planet, but as tools. Servile mercenaries is the exact phrase. It's a wild idea, right? But it forces us to ask some really profound questions.
The whole idea of the book is that on this planet Pax, the plants have had millions of extra years to evolve. They aren't just sitting there looking pretty, they are master strategists. They can sabotage your crops, defend their territory, and even bribe and coerce other species into doing their dirty work. It just completely flips our whole human-centric view of the world right on its head.
And here is where it gets really interesting. Well, okay, intelligent, manipulative vines might be fiction. The core idea that plants are active, strategic communicators, that is very, very real. The secret language from that sci-fi novel is being spoken all around us, right now, on our own planet. We just have to learn how to listen.
The science behind this is just fascinating. For a while now, we've known that plants send out alarm calls. A researcher named Rick Carbon discovered that when a sagebrush gets munched on, it releases these chemical signals into the air to warn its neighbors to get their defenses up. But it turns out warnings are just the tip of the iceberg. This whole conversation is what theorist Donna Haraway calls a rich wallow in multi-species muddles. I love that phrase. It's this chaotic, beautiful web where the lives of plants, insects, and fungi are all tangled up together.
There's actually a whole field that studies this, and it's called biocommunication. And scientists, like the ecologist Consuelo de Moraes, are discovering just how unbelievably intricate this web of signals really is. You know, it's not just plant to plant. It's plant to insect, plant to bacteria. A constant, invisible chatter that is literally shaping the world around us.
So let's look at some of these incredible alliances. And we have to start with one of the most mind-blowing examples, plants hiring bodyguards. And I'm not speaking in metaphors here. This is a real, precise life-or-death transaction.
Okay, get this. When a caterpillar starts chewing on a corn, tobacco, or cotton plant, the plant doesn't just send out a generic alarm. No. It actually analyzes the caterpillar's saliva to figure out exactly what species it is. Then, it releases a highly specific chemical perfume, an SOS signal, tailored to attract the one species of parasitic wasp that preys on that exact caterpillar. The wasp flies in, lays its eggs inside the pest, and boom, the plant is saved. It is literally an airborne assassination contract taken out by a plant.
But this communication isn't just a one-way street. De Moraes also saw starving bumblebees doing something really weird. They were biting the leaves of black mustard plants. Now, bees don't eat leaves, so what was going on? Well, the very next day, the plants bloomed, a full month ahead of schedule. The bees, out of sheer desperation, had basically forced the plant's hand, communicating their urgent need for nectar. It was a negotiation.
So you see, plants have this whole toolkit for manipulating the world around them. They pay ants and sugar to act as their bodyguards. They provide literal housing inside their thorns for entire ant colonies who then fiercely defend their home. They even enforce contracts. Legumes, for instance, they host nitrogen-fixing bacteria in their roots. And if any of those little bacteria get lazy and stop producing, the plant punishes them by cutting off their oxygen supply. It's just an incredible display of agency.
But this hidden conversation goes way beyond simple survival tactics. Some plant behaviors are so strange and so complex, they make us question our own ideas about things like coercion, consent, and even what beauty is for.
Okay, let's talk about sexually deceptive orchids because this is wild. These plants have evolved to perfectly mimic the look, the feel, and, most importantly, the smell of a female wasp. Why? To trick male wasps into trying to mate with them, so the wasp will accidentally carry its pollen to the next orchid.
Now, the standard Darwinian view is pretty simple, right? The orchid tricks the wasp and the poor wasp gets nothing out of the deal. But some scientists are proposing another way to look at it. What if it's less of a trick and more of a flirtatious interspecies dance? What if the wasp kind of knows it's not a real female but indulges in the pleasure of the encounter anyway? It totally shifts the story from pure deception to something much more interesting, a weird reciprocal entanglement.
And the chemistry behind this trick is just mind-boggling. Researchers found that these orchids aren't just using regular floral scents. Oh no. They are manufacturing these incredibly complex chemical cocktails, many of them completely new to science, that perfectly replicate the private, secret pheromones of a very specific wasp species. They are absolute chemical geniuses.
And what about beauty? Botanist Robin Wall Kimmerer had this great question. Why do beautiful purple asters and yellow goldenrod always seem to grow together? Well, her research showed that when they're planted together, that stunning contrast of colors attracts way more pollinators than either plant could on its own. Look at that jump. Their beauty isn't just for us to look at, it's functional. It's basically a giant neon billboard screaming, "Hey bees, over here."
But here's the thing. There's a huge problem. This ancient, intricate communication network is being seriously disrupted. Human activity, specifically air pollution, is creating a kind of static that's jamming all these signals, and the consequences could be devastating.
Researcher Jarmo Holopainen's work shows exactly how this happens. First, pollution like ozone acts like a thick fog. It stops those airborne chemical signals from traveling very far. Second, it can actually change the chemical message itself, scrambling it into total gibberish. And third, pollution can cause the plant on the receiving end to close up its pores, meaning it's not even listening for a message in the first place.
The domino effect here is enormous. Natural pest control systems start to break down. Pollinators can't find the flowers they need. And to make it all worse, we've actually bred some of our most important crops, like certain types of corn, to be completely mute. They can't send out those crucial SOS signals, which makes them totally dependent on chemical pesticides.
And the human cost of replacing these natural defenses is just staggering. Because when plants are silenced, we have to douse our fields in chemicals. The result? 385 million severe pesticide poisonings around the world every single year. We are paying a very, very heavy price for not listening.
So, what's the solution? Where do we go from here? Well, it's not about inventing some brand new fancy technology. It's about finally learning to listen to the technologies that plants themselves have been perfecting for millions of years.
And we are actually starting to do this. Scientists are breeding new kinds of rice with genes from lima beans so the rice can summon its own parasitic wasps. Farmers are rediscovering ancient wisdom like companion planting, putting strawberries next to borage, which brings in more pollinators and boosts your fruit yields by a third. The whole goal is to design systems where plants can defend themselves again.
Ultimately, what all this really means is that plants are brilliant communicators and master chemists. By silencing them, we're not just damaging ecosystems, we are ignoring an incredibly powerful ally. The most sustainable, and frankly, the smartest path forward is to just get out of the way and let plants do more of the speaking for themselves.
The air all around you is just full of these messages. It's full of warnings and invitations, deceptions, and alliances. There's this entire world of communication happening right under our noses. So the question is no longer whether plants can talk. The real question is, are we finally ready to be quiet and listen?